Hey everybody. So this is a little project I had at the shop the other day, and basically it's a little frame swap. And so this particular bike, it's a small frame. It's a co-op, but this is going to be a donor bike for basically just using all the components and things, and to swap over onto this All City Space Horse frame here, and it's a larger frame. I think it's 58 centimeter. Yeah, and so yeah, basically just a matter of just gonna go through the process of swapping all these parts over. Thought it'd be something might be a little interesting just to show it, so I went ahead and filmed it. Kind of got some of the highlights. One little thing to overcome, it's a co-op had a post mount brake mounts and on the frame and the fork, whereas the Space Horse had the IS mounts, so we just needed some adapters there. The cables, the shift cables were a little different orientation, not a huge deal. Some TRP mechanical disc brake caliper, and so pretty easy just to swap right over. So we went ahead and put a different Cane Creek 40 headset in there, and then got my little disc brake adapters. Put some fresh tape, new hoods, and then these are just some of the bits and stuff that came with the frame set. Those are little cable stops there. So this particular frame, it's got the down tube braze-ons there, so you can mount a actual down tube shifter if you feel like that's something you want to do, or you just put the cable stops there and your STI lever or bar end shifter. In this case, just the cable housing just butts right up to that. So anyway, yeah, we're just stripping it down here, pull the wheels off. I don't know. I don't really have a specific way I typically do these generally. Just take it apart. Some of the things, if you can, it's the same, sometimes you may do a frame swap, it's the exact same frame, and if this is the case on this one, you could have actually just left all the cables attached and taken the derailleurs off, and it would have pretty much been in the same location. You would have been minimal adjustment. But this particular frame, since it's so much smaller, I had to add new cables, and plus the mounts were all in a different place. So yeah, not a huge deal though. So yeah, this is the components on here are Derailleur, so it's basically a mountain bike group set essentially. So I'm just pulling off the cranks here, and just like any Shimano Holotech, you got that little, you want to back the tension off the pinch bolts a little at a time, and then undo the little safety tab and take your preload cap out, and they just slips right out of there. So these it's say just the Holotech style cups. Unthreading here, so there are some. I'll kind of get into this a little further, but you can see the spacers there that are on these, between the edge of the cup and the frame. That's basically just to compensate for the mountain bike crank, and it's a 68 millimeter with bottom bracket shell. So if it was a 73, you would use one of those spacers just on the drive side, but we're going to be using 3 this configuration. So yeah, just pulling off the front derailleur here. And as far as the brake cables, the bike to bike, they were actually the way the levers were mounted. I didn't really like the way they were sitting really low on the bar. So once I kind of redid that and mocked everything up on the new bike, it was all I was able to reuse the same brake cables and everything else. It looked like this bike, the donor bike, hadn't been ridden much. It was pretty cherry condition. didn't have a lot of miles on it, but so I went ahead and just reused the cables. Felt good on the brakes there, but yeah, so just removing the stem here, kind of the same deal as the Hollowtech crank. You want to just back those pinch bolts a little at a time. You don't want to loosen one all the way and then the other. It just puts a lot of stress on that, on the stem. Tightening too, it can put a lot of stress, especially if it's a carbon steer tube, something like that. Anyway, had a pretty tall stack of spacers there, so I went ahead and just transferred them all over to the Space Horse, because it uses a steel steer tube, so you can always cut some down if you want it shorter, but can't add any to it, so unless you want to put a new fork. Went ahead and took my little the head tube facing tool there to basically clean that paint up, clean the paint off the where the cup sits down on there. Just kind of hit both ends, make sure we got a nice clean ends are parallel to each other, so the cups, they fit in there. They're basically everything's in the same plane. Bearings are going to work the best and give you the best performance and best feel, steering input and all that stuff. So yeah, generally any steel frame like this, if there's paint on it and stuff, it's always a good idea to just give it a quick clean up there. Just clean that paint off the ends there. So got the top done. Now I'm just doing the bottom. You don't have to go super buck wild with it. Just get it to where you're, it might cut into the metal just a tiny touch, but it's basically just enough to get both ends nice and parallel to each other there. So it's quite a bit of paint on there. So get that off, all cleaned up, and then I actually did the same thing with the cleaned the threads here and such on the bottom bracket. Clean those face the sides, and kind of did the face and chase thing. So there's our nice clean head tube there, ready for to press the cup in. And so yeah, that's our little Cane Creek 40 headset. It's pretty sweet. I got one of these on one of my bikes. It's a bang for the buck. It's definitely one of the better headsets out there for the money, for sure. So you get your basically your bearing, and so we're just going to press the cups in, and got to press our crown race there onto the fork. So pretty much what we'll do first is get the crown race pressed on. It's always a good idea to measure before you get in, start trying to pound it on there, make sure it's compatible with the actual crown on your fork there, where the crown race press is on. So we're all good there. Just getting my Park crown race seating tools here, and usually it varies a little on a lot of them. Some guys will do stuff like heat up one end, put one in the freezer and heat up the other end a little bit and just slide it right on. And I don't know, I usually just put a little grease on the crown and smack it on there. I don't really have time to mess around with trying to heat or cool stuff down at work. It's just got to get it done quickly. So you got these little lines here on usually I'll just put those facing in the front, the little head badge or whatever. Depending on the headset, sometimes I'll press one cup in at a time and do the other. I don't know, we've got the little center pieces that get everything nice and square, hold the cups square, so I just did them both simultaneously. Sometimes, I don't know, just it really depends on the frame. Some of them that are really tight, you may need to clean up the ID of that head tube just so the cups press in a little. You definitely want them to press in. You don't want them to just push them in with your hand. If you're pushing them in by hand, you've got either a damaged frame or I don't know, something wrong size components. But anyway, these went in real nice there. Got them in nice and straight. Got the logos all lined up. That's the thing with the lines. If you get all that correct, it looks super clean. You know, just nice attention to detail, and I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's kind of a stickler about having all that stuff super straight. You know, it just looks professional. Put a little grease here on the bearings on the outside edge. Just a nice, good little film of grease. You know, it keeps water and stuff from corroding and damaging the bearings, things like that. Makes disassembly and everything else a lot better. But basically, what we're gonna do first, get the bearings greased, and I'll just leave all that in there. But I'm gonna put all my spacers and things in here and establish where we're gonna need to cut down the steer tube. So I used that complete stack of spacers, you know, and stacked a couple more on top. You know, this would be about the maximum you would ever want to really run one of these. You know, like I say, you can always cut more down later on, and you know, we'll probably eventually even put a little bit longer stem on here, but you know, definitely probably don't want to go any higher than that. So I just scored a little line above the spacer. So usually I'll take my cutting guide and I'll put that line that I scored just on the top, you know, just flush with the top of the outside edge of the cutting guide there. And so then that basically gives you about I don't know, that's 6 millimeters or so, 1/4 inch, where the blade actually cuts, so that, you know, kind of just simulates that area above where you want it to fit, just a little below the edge of the stem there. So it gives you kind of the perfect depth where you can get your preload cap, you know, get everything tight. I went and, you know, cleaned up did that off camera, chamfered the edge of the fork there. Now we're just going to press our star-fangled nut in. Sometimes you gotta finagle it a little, make sure you get it in nice and straight. Yeah, so we got that thing all put in there. The little tool there will set the star nut at the correct depth. So got our steer tube cut and ready to just assemble it all together. So I'm, you know, again, typically if I have fit measurements or anything, you know, or if I know who's the bike's going for, I'll usually cut the steer tube to fit. In this case, I had no idea. I didn't have any fit measurements or anything to go by, so I usually, if I don't know, then I'll just cut the steer tube to about maximum length, and you know, we can always, after some fitting or get a few rides in, we can always shorten that if need be. So that's, you know, that's why I do that. Some guys like to slam those things, slam the stem all the way to the head tube to start, but that's not the direction I went on this bike. So yeah, that's the reason for all the spacers. So yeah, we're just cleaning the paint out of the bottom bracket shell as well. Just face the sides of the bottom bracket. So saw a video a while back, a guy was saying how talking about these, how they can be out of plane, but you know, this park thing, that thing is so tight, you can almost feel the air come out of there. So I don't know, when if you do clean these up, make sure you get that all on the same plane. This is something I've kind of done with the frames that I built and everything, and it's definitely makes a difference as far as getting those things set up. So this this frame, it's 68 millimeter, which is width, so it's pretty much standard road bike width. We've got a mountain bike crank on it, so Shimano, typically when you get these, this is just how it was on the other bike, but normally if you buy this bottom bracket, it'll come with the spacers, and there's a little, if you go to the dealer's manual, a little PDF, and it'll show you where to put the spacers if need be. Most of your older mountain bikes that are threaded, they're 73 millimeters wide. And then some of them will have a little plate there on the drive side to hold a front derailleur, so that's just kind of why you've got all those spacers there. So basically got 2 on the drive side, 1 on the non-drive side, and that's just basically sets the crank right where it needs to be, I guess you could say. So now got all our spacers and bits in there. Put a little grease there on the spots of the spindle where it fits into the bearing bores. Just install my crank in the reverse procedure. Yeah, so you just tighten your little preload cap. I think there's an actual Newton meter. I don't know anybody that's actually used that. Usually, I mean, just go by feel. Tighten it till you feel the cranks just bottom out against the bearings, and snug down the pinch bolts. Just alternate either side to get up those things balanced and torqued down. I think it's 12 to 14 Newton meters if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, got them snug down. Push down your little safety plate thing and you're good to go. So I'm about to put my rear derailleur on, set it up, but I want to do a quick check, make sure this derailleur hanger was nice and straight here. So my little park derailleur derailleur alignment gauge thing there. So it's got a little shaft there on the end where you basically just work it around and until you've got even spacing. So basically it sets the dropout or the derailleur hanger exactly parallel to the wheel, so then that way when you bolt your rear derailleur up there, it's going to be square, and as the pulleys rotate through the gears, they're going to be directly underneath or in the same plane of the gear that they're supposed to be under. So got all that squared away, got our derailleur in, front derailleur, yeah, just pretty common on the Shimano. This is a triple. I don't know, seems like most of the bikes these days, or mountain bikes especially, are all going more of a one. I mean, at least all the performance bikes we have on the floor, they're all set up one by. This bike's going to be kind of a gravel type bike, just all around rider. So still quite a few triples out there, but anyway, that's set them up just like anything else. Little parallel cage to the rings, and I don't know. It's got plenty of videos on that. Put some links to. But putting our little cable stops on here. So yeah, they just slip on. The little bolt holds it in place. Pretty straightforward and simple. But yeah, like I say, you can use down tube shifters, and kind of fast forward. I didn't really go through all the derailleur setups. The brakes were basically just set up already. Retaped the bars, put some nice new gum hoods on there, so the bike came out pretty clean. Rode around, it's got a real sweet ride on it. Got some kind of wide sweeping gravel type bars. But that's gonna do it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already subscribed. I'm always putting out tons of build videos, tutorials, things like that. So that's going to do it. We'll see you guys next time.